The pressurization alarm failed for the third time that week. Marcus Kane woke up in the freezing cargo bay of his freighter, wrapped in 3 threadbare thermal blankets and his old Navy flight jacket. The cracked display of his wrist chronometer read 0547 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Just another day trying to survive with 243 credits in his pocket. He dragged his tired body over to the environmental control panel, his calloused fingers dancing over the worn buttons. The Dover-class cargo ship he called home had 28 years of continuous operation, and every system screamed for replacement. The central heater had been shut off 3 months ago to conserve power. The water recycler operated at 70% efficiency. The hyperdrive needed 15 minutes of warm-up before every jump, when it should only take 3. Marcus looked out the small observation window at Volkov's scrapyard station, a massive orbital structure floating on the edges of the Kepler 442 system. The station was an industrial nightmare of disassembly docks, magnetic cranes, and debris fields that stretched for miles. He had docked there the night before, running on his last fumes of fuel to attend an auction scheduled to happen in a few hours. Military salvage auction. The words on the digital advertisement still glowed in his mind. Normally, Marcus avoided these events. They were playgrounds for mining corporations and scrap syndicates that showed up with multi-million credit budgets, bidding on loads of rare metals and reusable electronic components. But something in the catalog this time had caught his attention during his last stop at a transit station. Lot 73, Titan-class armored cruiser. Decommissioned. Catastrophic damage. No guarantee of functionality. Reserve price, 6 galactic credits. 6 damn credits. Marcus knew that class of ship. He had served on one, the Indomitable, during his 17 years in the Unified Defense Force. Titans were legends of military engineering 20 years ago, armored behemoths built to absorb punishment that would destroy entire fleets of modern ships. They were slow, consumed absurd amounts of energy, and cost a fortune to keep operational. That's why High Command had retired them en masse, replacing them with fast attack cruisers equipped with plasma shields. But Marcus remembered the roar of the dual antimatter reactors. He remembered the 16-inch thick titanium tungsten composite armor that could withstand direct proton cannon fire. He remembered the engine room, where redundant mechanical systems ensured the ship would keep running even when the electronics failed. He finished dressing, pulling on his worn magnetic boots, and checking the balance on his portable credit chip. 243 credits. Barely enough for a month of nutritional paste and docking fees, but if he could get that ship for 6 credits, he would have 237 left. Maybe enough time to see if the old lady still had life in her. The station was waking up as Marcus crossed the commercial ring toward Auction Pavilion number 4. Cyborg laborers hauled cargo containers while holoprojectors advertised spare parts and dismantling contracts. The smell of synthetic lubricant and recycled ozone filled the air. The pavilion was a transparent dome that offered a view of the external debris field. Dozens of buyers were already seated in rows of floating chairs, most wearing the corporate uniforms of salvage companies. Some were Uthari, silver-skinned reptilian aliens known for their precision engineering skills. Others were Kalari, 4-armed beings who dominated the precious metal recycling market. Marcus found a seat in the back row, ignoring the disdainful glances that some of the corporate representatives cast his way. His threadbare navy jacket and patched trousers contrasted sharply with the impeccable executive suits around him. The auctioneer, a tall woman named Supervisor Chen, materialized on the central stage via a hollow projector. Her image shimmered in translucent blue as she began the standard procedure. The first lots were fiercely contested. A batch of starfighter hulls was snapped up by a Kalari corporation for 300,000 credits. A load of radiation-damaged quantum processors fetched 500,000. Marcus watched in silence, mentally calculating how much it would cost to fix each item. It was a useless exercise, but it kept his mind sharp. Finally, after 90 minutes of auctioning, Lot 73 appeared on the holographic monitors. The image showed an armored cruiser floating in space, illuminated by the station's spotlights. The ship was 420 meters long, with an angular silhouette that evoked raw power. But the condition was terrible. An entire section of the port hull had been ripped away, exposing internal compartments to the vacuum. The command tower was dented. Armor panels hung loose like dead skin. Titan-class cruiser, designation Void Guardian, Supervisor Chen read aloud. Decommissioned after confrontation with pirates in the Orion sector 8 years ago. Main reactor destroyed. Navigation systems offline. Structure compromised in multiple sections. Note: this vessel is sold for material disassembly only. No guarantee of functional recovery. She paused, clearly expecting laughter, and it came. Several of the corporate buyers laughed openly, some making comments in their native languages. Reserve price. Chen continued expressionlessly. 6 galactic credits. Do I have a bid? Silence settled in the pavilion. Marcus felt his heart accelerate. 6 credits, less than the cost of a single hot meal on the station. He raised his hand. We have a bid of 6 credits, Chen announced, sounding genuinely surprised. Anyone offer 7? More laughter. A Euthari in the third row turned to his colleagues and said something that provoked guffaws. Marcus didn't need to understand their language to know they were mocking him. Going once, Chen said. Marcus kept his hand raised, motionless. Going twice. The supervisor looked around the pavilion, her virtual eyes scanning the buyers. No one else spoke up. Sold, she declared, pointing at Marcus. Lot 73 sold to the gentleman in the back row for 6 galactic credits. Please proceed to the payment terminal. Marcus walked down to the terminal, ignoring the stares and whispers. He inserted his credit chip into the reader and authorized the transaction. 6 credits were deducted from his account, leaving a balance of 237. The terminal printed a certificate of ownership on synthetic paper. Marcus held the document as if it were made of gold. Owner, Marcus Kane. The text read, Vessel, Void Guardian, Titan class. Status, salvage. Condition, non-operational. Congratulations on your purchase, Supervisor Chen said, now in the flesh beside him. Her tone was polite, but there was a hint of pity in her eyes. You have 72 hours to remove the vessel from the debris field, or it'll be reprocessed by the station. Marcus nodded. Thank you, Supervisor. I'll need authorization for direct docking. Chen blinked in surprise. Docking? You intend to board that thing? She's my ship now, Marcus replied calmly. And I intend to make her fly again. The supervisor studied him for a long moment, then shook her head. Your authorization will be processed in 1 hour. Good luck, Mr. Kane. You'll need it. Marcus returned to his freighter and began preparations. He packed his tools, his few personal belongings, and all the rations he had saved. He sold the Dover to a scrap dealer for 120 credits, almost crying as he handed over the keys to the old ship that had kept him alive for 3 years. With 357 credits in his pocket, he hired a tug to transport him to the Void Guardian. The ship was even worse up close. Marcus floated through the damaged airlock using a borrowed spacesuit, his flashlight cutting through the absolute darkness of the internal corridors. There was no gravity, no atmosphere, no power. But as he navigated the silent compartments, touching the dead control panels and the cold bulkheads, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. He reached the engine room 4 hours later, pushing his way through floating debris and disconnected cables. The main reactor was indeed a total loss, its antimatter containment chamber cracked and inert. But there, hidden behind an access panel that most modern technicians would ignore, was the system he had hoped to find. The secondary fusion reactor, an old-school backup that Titans carried for emergencies. Marcus checked the containment seals, the deuterium injectors, and the ignition circuits. All intact. Just disconnected. He smiled inside his helmet. "Hey there, old lady," he whispered to the silent ship. "Let's see if you still remember how to fight." Marcus worked for 18 consecutive hours on the first day. He mapped every critical system of the ship, navigating the labyrinths of dark corridors with only his flashlight and a memory that refused to let him forget. The Indomitable, his old ship, had been built in the same shipyard as the Void Guardian. The layouts were practically identical. He established his base of operations in the auxiliary engineering room, a smaller compartment adjacent to the main engine room. There, he set up a portable power generator he had bought for 50 credits at the station. It wasn't enough to power the ship's systems, but it provided light and heat for a single room. On the second night, Marcus made his first reconnection attempt. The secondary fusion reactor required 17 primary circuits to initiate the ignition sequence. 14 were intact. The remaining 3 had been cut during the decommissioning process, likely by technicians who assumed the ship would never fly again. Marcus had no spare parts, but he had something better: knowledge of the Titan's redundant engineering. He traversed the adjacent compartments until he found what he was looking for: power cables from a deactivated weapons system. The conductors were from the previous generation, thicker and less efficient than modern ones, but compatible with the reactor's architecture. He worked in the vacuum for 6 hours, welding connections with a portable plasma torch, checking each junction with a multimeter that had seen better days. His hands trembled with cold even inside the spacesuit's thermal gloves. But when the last connection was established, he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Marcus returned to the auxiliary engineering room and initiated the secondary reactor's pre-ignition sequence. The control panel lit up. For the first time in 8 years, its holographic displays flashing red and amber as diagnostic systems ran automatic checks. Fuel pressure, nominal. Magnetic seal integrity, 92%. Cryogenic cooling, offline. Marcus frowned. The cooling system was critical. Without it, the reactor would overheat within minutes of ignition. He accessed the subsystems and discovered the problem. The cryogenic liquid pumps were seized. 8 years of inactivity had crystallized the internal lubricants. 4 more hours of work. Marcus disassembled the pumps, heated the components with his torch on a low setting, and applied synthetic lubricant he had brought from his old freighter. When he reactivated the system, the pumps whirred back to life. At 003:20 hours on the third morning, Marcus was ready. He inserted the manual authorization code into the control panel, a 20-digit sequence that every Navy engineer memorized during basic training. The reactor responded with a deep hum that echoed through the ship's dead structure. Initiating fusion sequence, the synthetic computer voice announced. Countdown, 60 seconds. Marcus watched the displays as the deuterium injectors began to pulse, feeding the magnetic containment chamber. Core temperature rising. Containment fields stabilizing. The entire ship began to vibrate gently as the fusion reaction started. 30 seconds. He checked the power distribution circuits, all in the green. 15 seconds. The auxiliary lights flickered, then stabilized. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition confirmed. Secondary reactor operating at 20% nominal capacity. Marcus let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Around him, the ship's systems began to awaken like an organism emerging from deep hibernation. Emergency lights came on in the corridors. Artificial gravity generators initiated their activation sequences. Long dormant control panels glowed with renewed life. Then something unexpected happened. A female voice, clear and precise, echoed through the engineering room speakers. Central systems restarting. Void Guardian. Tactical artificial intelligence. Exiting hibernation mode. Running primary diagnostics. Marcus froze. The tactical AI. He had completely forgotten about it. Titan-class ships were equipped with advanced artificial intelligence systems to coordinate combat, navigation, and complex operations. But after 8 years offline, he had assumed the AI would be corrupted or wiped. Diagnostics complete, the voice continued. Neural architecture, intact. Memory banks, intact. Cognitive capacity, 100%. Requesting operator identification. Marcus Kane, he replied hesitantly, legal owner of this vessel. There was a 3-second pause. Then, identification confirmed via Volkov station records. Owner, Marcus Kane, Unified Defense Force veteran, 17 years of service, systems engineering specialization. Welcome aboard, Engineer Kane. Awaiting instructions. Marcus blinked. The AI sounded completely functional. Almost alive. What's your name? He asked. My official designator is Void Guardian Integrated Tactical System, the AI replied. My previous crew called me Atlas. You may use any designation you prefer. Atlas, Marcus repeated. All right, Atlas, give me a full ship status report. The displays around the engineering room filled with data. Marcus spent the next 20 minutes absorbing information. The picture wasn't pretty, but it was better than he expected. The hull was compromised in 12 sections, but emergency bulkheads had automatically sealed the damaged compartments during the original attack. Life support systems needed extensive repairs, but were recoverable. The main weapons were offline, but the point defense systems could be reactivated. The maneuvering thrusters were functional. The hyperdrive was intact, just without power. Do you really think you can fix all this alone? Atlas asked. Its voice carried a tone Marcus interpreted as skepticism. No, he admitted, but I know some people who can help, if they're willing. Marcus knew exactly who to look for. Over his years wandering border stations, he had crossed paths with dozens of other veterans like him. Men and women who had served in the pacification wars, who knew the old ships inside and out, who had been discarded by the modern Navy just like the ships they flew. He sent messages to 3 specific contacts through the station's communication network. He didn't offer payment, he made no promises, he just sent coordinates and a single line of text. "I'm bringing a Titan back to life. Interested?" The first response arrived 6 hours later. Sarah Chen, no relation to the auction supervisor, was a precision electronics technician. Marcus had met at a mining station 3 years ago. She had served as a communications systems specialist aboard a destroyer of the same generation as the Titans. Coordinates received. Her message read, "Arriving in 30 hours. Bring coffee." The real stuff, not that synthetic crap. The second response came from Victor Petrov, a weapons systems specialist who had lost his left arm and both legs in a reactor explosion. His mechanical prosthetics were works of art, built by himself using parts from discarded military ships. Marcus had met him at a veterans bar on Frontier Station. "A Titan?" Victor wrote, "You're crazy, Kane. I'll be there in 2 days." The third response was the most surprising. Jin Yamamoto, a propulsion engineer who had served in the same fleets as Marcus, but whom he hadn't seen in 4 years. Jin rarely responded to messages, preferring to live in seclusion on remote stations, working on projects no one else understood. His message was typical of him. Yes. Marcus returned to work while he waited. With basic power restored, he could make more complex repairs. He started with the life support systems, reconnecting oxygen generators and repairing water distribution lines. Atlas assisted him, providing detailed schematics and highlighting damaged components on the holographic displays. "May I ask a personal question?" Atlas inquired during a rest break. Marcus replied as he drank recycled water from a thermal pouch. "Why did you buy this ship? You only had 243 credits. You could have used that money for months of survival. Instead, you invested almost everything in a hull that 99% of the galaxy would consider space junk." Marcus was silent for a moment, considering the question. "Because people see the price, not the value," he finally said. "They look at you and see 300,000 credits worth of scrap. I look and see a fortress that protected thousands of lives, engineering that survived battles that would destroy any modern ship. A second chance. For the ship or for you?" Atlas asked. "For both," Marcus admitted. Sarah Chen arrived exactly 30 hours later, piloting a small transport shuttle. She was a compact woman of Asian descent, short black hair, and eyes that missed no detail. When she floated through the airlock and saw the interior of the Void Guardian, illuminated and with artificial gravity, she whistled softly. "You actually did it," she said, taking off her helmet. "You brought a Titan back." "There's still a lot of work ahead," Marcus replied, smiling. Victor Petrov arrived 2 days later, his prosthetics gleaming under the docking bay lights. He was a huge man, even before the cybernetic modifications, with a red beard and a laugh that echoed through the corridors. Jin Yamamoto was the last to arrive, 6 days after the initial contact. He was a thin man, of Japanese origin, quiet and methodical. He inspected the engine room for 3 hours without saying a word, then finally nodded to Marcus. "Can make this work," was all he said. The crew was assembled. The transformation of the Void Guardian happened like a symphony of improvised engineering. Each crew member brought not only skills, but a deep understanding of the philosophy behind the old military ships. It wasn't just about making systems work, it was about making them work in ways modern engineers would never consider. Sarah Chen took over the communication and sensor systems. She discovered that the long-range arrays had been damaged beyond repair, but instead of giving up, she recalibrated them to operate on unconventional frequencies. The sensors had only 60% at effective range, but they were virtually invisible to modern electronic countermeasures systems. No one looks for transmissions on bands that were obsolete 20 years ago, she explained to Marcus while soldering circuits. It's like using an analog radio in a world of quantum communications. Primitive, but impossible to intercept with modern technology. Viktor Petrov dove into the weapon systems with enthusiasm bordering on the religious. The main proton cannons were dead. Their acceleration chambers cracked. But the point defense systems, automated turrets designed to intercept missiles and fighters, still had potential. He worked for 12 consecutive hours, disassembling each turret, cleaning components, and replacing burned-out actuators with parts he fabricated himself using portable 3D printers. When he finished, 8 of the 24 turrets were operational. It's not much, he admitted, his mechanical hands adjusting a final screw. But in the right hands, 8-point defense turrets can do a lot of damage, especially if Atlas can coordinate them. I can, the AI confirmed through the speakers. My tactical combat subroutines include multiple threat engagement protocols. With 8 turrets, I can establish a 360-degree defensive sphere around the vessel. Jin Yamamoto didn't talk much, but his results spoke for him. He spent 3 full days in the propulsion room, rebuilding the maneuvering thrusters from components he salvaged from damaged sections of the ship. When Marcus asked if he needed help, Jin simply shook his head and kept working. On the 10th day, Jin called him to the propulsion room. The 4 main engines were glowing softly, their magnetic containment fields stabilized. "Propulsion test?" Jin asked. Marcus and Victor joined him in the control room. Sarah was on the bridge, monitoring sensors. Atlas coordinated all systems. Initiating test sequence, the AI announced. Engine 1, ignition in 3, 2, 1. The ship trembled gently. On the displays, Engine 1 lit up with the characteristic blue glow of plasma emitters. Engine 1 operational at 85% capacity, Atlas reported. Continuing sequence. One by one, the 4 main engines ignited. The old warship vibrated with contained power, its systems responding after years of forced silence. All engines operational, Atlas declared. Maneuvering capacity restored to 78% of original parameters. We can execute atmospheric flights and limited space combat. Marcus felt a lump in his throat. They had actually done it. A ship the universe had discarded as space junk was alive again. But the most important work was yet to come. The hyperdrive was the backbone of any interstellar ship. Without it, the Void Guardian was stuck in the Kepler 442 system. The problem was that jump drives were incredibly complex, requiring precise calibrations and components that cost a fortune. Marcus and Jin inspected the main unit for 2 days. The jump core was intact, its dimensional crystal matrix still perfectly aligned. But the power capacitors had failed, unable to store the charge needed to open a hyperspace portal. "We need military-grade capacitors," Jin said, pointing to the burned cylinders. Each one costs about 20,000 credits. How many do we need? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. 8. 160,000 credits. They had less than 200. Marcus spent the next night browsing the digital black market of Volkov Station, looking for alternatives. Civilian capacitors were cheap, but wouldn't handle the energies involved. Mining capacitors were tough, but the wrong size. Transport capacitors were abundant, but too slow. It was Sarah who found the solution. She entered the engineering room at 300 hours, waking Marcus from a nap in his chair. "I have a crazy idea," she announced. Marcus rubbed his eyes. "We've done so many crazy things that one more won't make a difference." "What do you have in mind?" Sarah opened a schematic on her portable tablet. "Capacitors in series. We take cheap transport capacitors, connect 16 of them in series for each position that needs a military capacitor. The total capacity will be the same, but distributed." Marcus studied the diagram. In theory, it could work, but the implementation would be an epic hack. The Navy engineers would have a heart attack if they saw this, he commented. "Good thing none of them are here," Sarah replied with a smile. They bought 128 used transport capacitors for 3 credits each, totaling 384 credits. Marcus had to sell his personal tools and some spare parts he had saved to cover the cost. The installation took 5 days. Jin built custom mounts to accommodate the capacitor banks. Sarah reprogrammed the control circuits to distribute the charge evenly among the units. Victor fabricated high-voltage connectors using copper wires he stripped from damaged wall panels. Atlas watched everything with what Marcus interpreted as fascination. "You humans have a remarkable capacity to make the impossible work," the AI commented. "No other species I know would attempt to replace precision military components with civilian equipment in series. It's called ghetto engineering," Sarah explained. "An old word that means making something work, using limited resources and unlimited creativity." On the 17th day, since Marcus had bought the ship, they were ready to test the jump drive. The crew gathered on the bridge, a space that had been cleared of debris and partially restored. The control stations still showed signs of damage, but all screens were functional. The captain's chair, a worn, synthetic leather seat, had been repaired by Victor using materials he refused to identify. Marcus sat in it for the first time, feeling the weight of responsibility. "Atlas, jump drive status?" he asked. "All systems in the green," the AI replied. "Capacitors charging. Estimate for full charge, 8 minutes." Sarah was at the sensor station. Victor monitored power systems. Jin watched standing near the entrance, his arms crossed. The minutes passed slowly. Marcus watched the displays showing the charge increasing in the improvised capacitors. 70%, 80, 90. "Full charge achieved," Atlas announced. "Jump drive ready for activation. Set destination for the adjacent system, Kepler 438, Marcus ordered. "Short jump, just for testing. Coordinates calculated, jump window established, awaiting execution command." Marcus looked at his crew. Sarah gave a confident smile. Victor gave an affirmative gesture with his mechanical thumb. Jin simply nodded. "Execute jump," Marcus commanded. The entire ship vibrated as the jump drive activated. The space around the Void Guardian began to distort, visible ripples forming as the hyperspace portal opened. Marcus felt the familiar sensation of disorientation as reality folded. Then, as abruptly as it began, it ended. Jump complete, Atlas reported. Arrival in the Kepler 438 system confirmed. All systems functional. The improvised capacitors performed perfectly. The bridge erupted in celebration. Sarah let out a whoop of victory. Victor laughed loudly. Even Jin smiled. Marcus just leaned back in the captain's chair, allowing himself a moment of pure relief. "We actually did it," he murmured. "We made a junkyard fly again." "With respect, Captain Kane," Atlas said, and Marcus noted that the AI had switched from calling him engineer to captain. This ship was never a junkyard, it just needed someone to believe in it again. Marcus smiled. "You're right. Let's head back to Kepler 442. We still have work to do." But when the Void Guardian jumped back to the original system, they found something unexpected waiting for them. An emergency broadcast on a wide band, transmitted in a continuous loop. "Attention, all nearby vessels. This is the New Horizons civilian convoy. We are transporting 3,200 civilian colonists en route to the planet Gliese 581G. We are under attack by unidentified hostile forces. Our security escort has been destroyed. Repeating, we are under attack. Any vessel capable of rendering assistance, please respond." The voice on the transmission was filled with barely contained panic. Marcus exchanged glances with his crew. None of them said a word. They didn't need to. "Atlas, how long until we reach the source of the transmission?" Marcus asked. 22 minutes at maximum impulse speed," the AI replied. "But Captain, I must remind you that this vessel is not certified for combat. We do not have legal authorization to intervene in conflict situations. How many lives are on that convoy?" 3,200, according to the transmission. Marcus stood up from the captain's chair and walked to the front observation window. Through it, he could see the distant stars. Somewhere out there, thousands of people were dying while he debated what to do. He thought of Supervisor Chen, who had told him the ship was just scrap. He thought of the corporate buyers who laughed at him. He thought of all the years he spent on the sidelines, ignored and discarded. Then he thought of the words the AI had said. This ship just needed someone to believe in it again. "Atlas," he said calmly, "calculate an interception course, maximum speed." "Captain," the AI began. Marcus interrupted her. 3,200 people are dying. We don't have certification. We don't have authorization. We don't even have decent working weapons. But we have something that matters more than any of those things. We have the capacity to help. And that means we have an obligation to try. He turned to the crew. Anyone disagree? Silence. Then Victor smiled. Let's teach these pirates not to underestimate scrap heaps. Sarah checked her controls. Sensors adjusted for combat. Let's show them what the old guard can still do. Jin simply took his position at the propulsion station. Ready? Atlas processed for a moment. Then its voice returned with something that sounded surprisingly like pride. Course calculated. Accelerating to maximum speed. Estimated time to interception, 22 minutes. Preparing combat systems. The Void Guardian roared forward, its ancient armor and improvised weapons, the only hope 3,200 souls had of seeing the dawn. The New Horizon convoy appeared on the sensors when the Void Guardian was 8 minutes away. It was a pathetic formation. 5 civilian transport ships, each the size of a skyscraper, moving at standard cruising speed. They had no armaments. They had no military armor. They were just hulls full of hopeful families looking for a better life on a distant world. And surrounding them, like predators circling wounded prey, 5 attack ships circulated. Atlas transmitted the data to the bridge displays. Marcus studied each hostile ship with growing attention. They were fast-attack corvettes, likely Kalari in origin due to the engine configuration. Each was about 80 meters long, equipped with energy pulse cannons and missile launchers. 5 against 1, Victor muttered. I like those odds. The mathematical chances of victory are approximately 18%, Atlas informed with its characteristic precision. The hostiles have an advantage in speed, maneuverability, and combined firepower. And we have 16 inches of titanium tungsten armor, Marcus replied. They can hit us all day. The question is whether they can hit us where it matters, before we disarm all of them. Sarah was scanning the communication frequencies. I just intercepted transmissions between the attackers. They're speaking commercial Kalari. They identify themselves as Hunting Group 3 of the Red Wind Fleet. Red Wind pirates, Victor said with disgust. I know that scum. They attack colonist convoys, steal cargo, and disappear before the military patrol arrives, cowards who only fight when they have a numerical advantage. We have 4 minutes until engagement range, Atlas warned. I recommend we make an identification transmission. Marcus nodded. Open a wideband channel. Let everyone hear. Channel open, Captain. Marcus took a deep breath. Attention. Hostile vessels attacking the New Horizon convoy. This is the armored cruiser Void Guardian. You have 30 seconds to cease fire and withdraw from the sector, or you will be considered hostile targets and dealt with appropriately. There were 5 seconds of silence. Then the pirates' transmissions erupted in laughter. One of the corvettes responded, the pilot's voice full of amusement. Armored cruiser. Our sensors show an old Titan-era hull with no significant energy signature. You're about as threatening as a floating piece of scrap. Turn around and go back to the junkyard you came from, human. Atlas, how long until point defense turret range? Marcus asked calmly. 90 seconds at current speed. Victor, weapons status. 8 turrets online and hungry. The veteran replied, his mechanical hands dancing over the weapons controls. Ammunition at 100%. Targeting systems synchronized with Atlas. Sarah sensors, tracking all 5 hostiles. I've already identified their maneuver patterns. Transmitting data to Atlas. Jin, engines, ready for anything. Marcus turned to the AI. Atlas, when we enter range, I want you to coordinate turret fire on targets of opportunity. Prioritize weapons systems and propulsion. We're not trying to destroy these ships, just incapacitate them. Understood, Captain. Non-lethal engagement protocols established, awaiting your order to open fire. The final seconds dragged on. Marcus watched the pirate corvettes maintain their attack pattern around the civilian transports. They still weren't taking him seriously. They still thought the Void Guardian was just a bluff. They were about to learn a painful lesson. Weapons range in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Atlas counted. Entering combat envelope. Fire at will, Marcus ordered. What happened next was a demonstration of precision that would have impressed even the most demanding gunnery instructors at the Naval Academy. Atlas took direct control of the 8-point defense turrets, its quantum processors calculating trajectories, projectile flight time, and target movements with superhuman perfection. The turrets rotated in perfect synchronization, each locking onto a different target. The pirate corvettes, accustomed to facing defenseless merchant ships, had no protocols for dealing with military precision fire. When the turrets opened fire, unleashing bursts of tungsten projectiles at relativistic speeds, the pirates didn't even have time to react. The first corvette lost its two main pulse cannons in a shower of sparks. The second had its starboard maneuvering thruster ripped clean off. The third had its sensor antennae severed. The fourth and fifth attempted evasive maneuvers, but Atlas anticipated every move, adjusting fire automatically. 3 hostiles, with severely reduced combat capability, Atlas reported calmly. 2 still maneuvering, continuing engagement. The remaining corvettes finally reacted, turning to face the Void Guardian. Their pulse cannons lit up, firing concentrated energy beams that sliced through space toward the old armored cruiser. And they hit. The energy beams exploded against the Void Guardian's frontal armor, creating bright spots of superheated warmth. Alerts sounded on the bridge, as sensors registered direct impacts. But the armor held. Superficial damage only, Atlas reported. The titanium tungsten armor is absorbing enemy fire as designed. Hull surface temperature rising, but within safe limits. Marcus smiled. That's exactly what 16 inches of metal was made for. Keep firing, Atlas. The turrets didn't stop. Atlas coordinated every shot with brutal efficiency, targeting critical components. The fourth corvette had its missile launchers disabled. The fifth lost its maneuverability completely when Atlas hit all 4 of its propulsion engines in a rapid sequence of shots. In less than 2 minutes of combat, all 5 pirate ships were floating helplessly, their weapons systems destroyed, their engines dead. All hostile vessels neutralized, Atlas announced. No remaining combat capability, awaiting orders. Marcus opened the communication channel again. Red Wind Fleet vessels, your weapons and propulsion systems have been disabled. Remain where you are. Any attempt at repair or reactivation will be treated as a hostile act. A distress transmission is being sent to local authorities with your coordinates and identities. He closed the channel and turned to Sarah. Transmit the pirate data to the nearest space patrol. Include evidence of attack on civilians. Already transmitting, she replied. Marcus then opened a channel to the New Horizon convoy. New Horizon convoy, this is the Void Guardian. Threats have been neutralized. You are safe. The response came immediately, the voice trembling with emotion and relief. Void Guardian. This is Captain Martinez of the New Horizon. We have no words. You saved 3,200 lives today. Who are you? Marcus hesitated. Who were they? A crew of discarded veterans piloting a ship the universe had thrown away. Nobody important. Nobody anyone would notice under normal circumstances. But today, they were the only ones who mattered. We're just people who were in the right place at the right time, he replied. Stay safe, New Horizon. Godspeed. Before the captain could respond, Sarah cut in. Captain, I'm detecting transmissions from several other ships in the system. It looks like half of Volkov Station was monitoring this sector. The news of what we did is spreading. Marcus frowned. What kind of transmissions? Sarah smiled. Combat footage. Someone with long-range sensors recorded the whole thing. I've already seen 3 local news channels talking about an ancient cruiser that popped out of nowhere and disarmed 5 pirate ships in 2 minutes. Oh no, Victor, muttered. We're going to be famous. He wasn't wrong. In the following hours, as the Void Guardian escorted the convoy to a safe port, the transmissions multiplied. The story of the Titan cruiser, that had been bought for 6 credits and turned into a functional warship by a crew of veterans, spread across the galactic comm channels like wildfire. News stations requested interviews, security corporations offered contracts, colonial governments sent messages of thanks. But the transmission that truly mattered came 3 days later. Marcus was in engineering, checking the systems damaged during the fight, when Atlas called him to the bridge. "Captain, we have a priority transmission from the colonial government of Gliza, 500 G. The Governor General wishes to speak with you personally." Marcus went up to the bridge, where the holographic image of a middle-aged woman with graying hair and a colonial uniform appeared on the central projector. She had the face of someone who had seen a lot and wasn't easily impressed, but her eyes showed genuine respect. "Captain Kane," she began, "I am Governor General Amara Okonkwo. I represent 17 frontier colonies in the outer sector. I need to speak with you about a proposal." Marcus exchanged glances with his crew. "I'm listening, Governor." The attacks on New Horizon weren't an isolated incident. In the last 6 weeks, we've lost 14 settler convoys to pirates. Private security forces charge prices our colonies can't afford. The Space Patrol is overstretched and underfunded. People are dying because there is no one to protect them. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We watched what your ship did. An ancient cruiser, supposedly beyond repair, took down 5 modern attackers without taking significant damage, and you did it because you chose to intervene when no one else would." "What are you getting at?" Marcus asked. "We want to hire you and your crew. We're offering an official protection contract for the settler routes. Fair pay, legal authorization to operate in our space, and access to resources to maintain and upgrade your ship. In exchange, you escort convoys and respond to emergencies in the frontier colonies." Marcus blinked. "Governor, we're 4 veterans in a ship we bought for 6 credits. We are not a security force." Onkwo smiled. "Captain, you did what multi-million credit security corporations refused to do. You risked your lives for complete strangers without asking for anything in return. That makes you exactly the kind of force we need." She leaned forward. "I'm not asking for an immediate answer. Think about it. But know that if you accept, we will ensure the Void Guardian gets the necessary upgrades and supplies to be the ship it was meant to be. And you will have the gratitude of thousands of families who just want to live in peace." The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed the offer. It was Victor who spoke first. "You know, I spent the last 5 years drifting from station to station, doing repairs. For pocket change, nobody wanted me because I'm more metal than meat. But today, for the first time in years, I felt like I did something that mattered." Sarah nodded. "I was tired of being invisible, tired of being dismissed because I learned on old tech. But on this ship, with this crew, I finally feel useful again." Jin, surprisingly, was the next to speak. "I left the Navy because they told me my skills were obsolete, that ships like this were relics. But today, we proved that the old can be just as good as the new. Maybe better." Everyone looked at Marcus. He was sitting in the captain's chair, looking out the view screen at the stars beyond. "Atlas," he asked, "what's your take?" The AI was silent for a moment. "My original programming was to protect life and serve humanity. For 8 years, I was inactive, unable to fulfill that function. But today, for the first time since I was shut down, I did exactly what I was designed to do. And I found that I enjoyed it. Marcus smiled. Then I guess we have our answer. He opened a return channel to the governor's office. Governor Okonkwo, this is Captain Kane of the Void Guardian. We accept your offer. When do we start? The Meridian Colonial Shipyard was unlike any facility Marcus had ever seen. While Volkov Station was an industrial maze dedicated to dismantling ships, Meridian was a center for construction and renovation. Repair docks stretched in every direction, each large enough to accommodate battle cruisers. Magnetic cranes moved hull sections like giant building blocks. Teams of technicians worked around the clock. The Void Guardian docked at Bay 7, designated for emergency renovations. Through the viewports, Marcus could see teams of engineers already gathering, tablets in hand, analyzing their ship with professional interest. Captain Kane, Governor Okonkwo's voice, echoed over the comm system. Welcome to Meridian. My team is eager to start work. But first, I need you and your crew to come to my office. There are a few things we need to discuss. Marcus, Sarah, Victor, and Jin crossed the connecting walkways to the station's administrative section. The governor's office was Spartan but functional, with holographic panels showing star maps of the 17 colonies under her jurisdiction. Onkwo greeted them personally, shaking each person's hand. When she reached Victor, she looked at his mechanical prosthetics without hesitation or discomfort. "Those are impressive works," she commented. "Self-built?" "Yes, ma'am," Victor replied. "I made most of it using parts from decommissioned ships." "You'll get along well with our engineering team, then." She gestured for them to sit. "Let's get straight to the point. You've agreed to protect our colonial roots. That means you will be targets. The Red Wind Pirates are already broadcasting warnings about you. Other criminal organizations will want to test whether the battle against New Horizon was luck or skill." "Then we need to be ready," Marcus said. "Exactly. That's why I've authorized a full renovation budget for the Void Guardian. You'll receive additional armor plating on damaged sections, full structural repairs, modern life support systems, and most importantly, weapons." Sarah leaned forward. "What kind of weapons?" Onkwo activated a holographic display. The image showed the Void Guardian, but with extensive modifications. 2 medium-range magnetic railguns mounted ventrally, upgraded defensive missile launch systems, and we're going to restore half of your original point defense turrets. With 20 functional turrets, you'll have complete defensive coverage. Victor whistled. "That's enough firepower to take on a small flotilla." "That's the point," Okonkwo confirmed. "You won't just be escorting convoys. You'll be patrolling trade routes, responding to distress calls, and when necessary, engaging pirates before they can attack. It's dangerous work." Marcus studied the plans for a long moment. "How long will it take?" 3 weeks if we work around the clock. I know it sounds like a long time, but we are essentially rebuilding half your ship." "And the crew?" Sarah asked. 4 people aren't enough to operate a cruiser at full capacity." Onkwo smiled. "I've thought about that. You can keep your core crew small if you wish, but I have a list of volunteers, veterans from the colonies, technicians who want to make a difference, even some civilians with specialized skills. You choose who you want aboard." Marcus looked at his companions. Victor shrugged. Sarah nodded. Jin, as always, simply waited. "We'll need 2 more people," Marcus decided. "A medic and someone who can manage logistics and supplies. And they need to understand that this is not a traditional military operation." "I can work with that," Okonkwo said. "I have 2 strong recommendations. Dr. Elena Reyes an emergency physician with combat trauma experience, and retired Lieutenant James Carter, former Colonial Navy logistics officer. "Bring them tomorrow," Marcus replied. "We'll see if they fit." The 3 weeks in the shipyard passed quickly. Marcus spent his days overseeing the renovation work, impressed by the efficiency of Okonkwo's team. They didn't just fix the existing damage, they improved systems that Marcus thought they would have to live with limitations on. The new railguns were engineering marvels. They used magnetic fields to accelerate projectiles to hypersonic speeds, causing devastating damage without relying on explosives. Sarah integrated them into Atlas's fire control systems, creating a coordinated weapons network that could engage multiple targets simultaneously. Victor personally supervised the installation of the 12 additional point defense turrets. With 20 functional turrets, the Void Guardian could establish a complete defensive sphere, intercepting missiles, torpedoes, and even enemy fighters. Jin worked with the shipyard technicians to optimize the engines. They couldn't make them faster, the hull structure's safety limiters prevented that, but they made them more efficient. The ship's operational range increased by 40%. Dr. Elena Reyes arrived on the 3rd day. She was a compact woman of Hispanic descent, with black hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and eyes that missed no detail. When Marcus took her to what would be the ship's sickbay, she immediately began making a list of necessary equipment. "I'll need a state-of-the-art medical scanner, field surgical equipment, and enough medical supply reserves to treat the crew for 6 months without resupply," she said. "And I want direct access to Atlas for crew health monitoring." "Can Atlas do that?" Marcus asked. "I can establish continuous biometric monitoring through the life support systems," the AI confirmed. "I can alert Dr. Reyes to any medical anomaly before symptoms appear." "Perfect," Elena said. "We'll get along just fine." James Carter arrived a week later. He was a tall, thin man, with dark skin and a calmness that only came from decades of logistical experience. His first action was to take a complete inventory of all the ship's supplies. "You have ammunition for 3 prolonged engagements," he reported to Marcus. "Spare parts for emergency repairs, but not enough for long-term maintenance. And your food reserves are pathetic." "Well," Marcus said, "it's a good thing you're here then." Carter spent the next few days establishing supply chains with colonial vendors, negotiating discounts in exchange for priority on their patrol routes. When he finished, the Void Guardian had enough supplies for 3 months of independent operations. Atlas observed everything with what Marcus interpreted as growing satisfaction. "Captain," the AI commented one evening while Marcus checked progress reports, "this crew is shaping up into something remarkable. Each person brings unique skills, but together they form a cohesive unit." "You sound surprised," Marcus replied. "Not surprised. Interested. In my previous experience, crews were assigned by central command. People were put together because they followed orders, not because they chose to be together. But you chose each other. That creates a different dynamic. Better or worse? Better, Atlas decided. Much better. By the 20th day, the Void Guardian was completely transformed. The damaged armor had been repaired and reinforced. The life support systems operated at 100% efficiency. The new railguns gleamed in their ventral mounts. The 20-point defense turrets formed a lethal crown around the hull. But what impressed Marcus the most was the paint job. The shipyard team had removed all the old military markings and painted the hull in matte dark grey, a colour scheme that reduced visual signatures in deep space. But on the starboard side, in 10-foot-high white letters, was the ship's name, Void Guardian, and below it, in smaller letters, Protector of the Frontier Colonies. Sarah stood next to Marcus on the observations platform, looking at the renovated ship. "She's beautiful," she whispered. "She's lethal," Victor corrected, appearing behind them, "and she's ready to remind the pirates why ships like this were feared." The maiden mission came on the 22nd day, an emergency transmission from a mining convoy in the Cygnus sector. Unidentified pirates had blocked their route and were demanding cargo in exchange for safe passage. Marcus gathered the crew on the bridge. "Atlas, time to Cygnus sector. 2 hours and 40 minutes at jump speed," the AI replied. "Then let's go. Sarah, prepare sensors for tactical analysis. Victor, check all weapons. Jin, I want the engines ready for combat maneuvers. Eleanor, make sure the sickbay is prepared. Carter, confirm we have enough ammunition." The crew moved with efficiency. Each person knew their role. Every system responded perfectly. The Void Guardian jumped into hyperspace, leaving Meridian Shipyard behind. When they emerged in the Cygnus sector, they found exactly what they expected: 3 pirate ships surrounding 2 mining freighters. But this time was different. When Marcus transmitted their identification, the pirates didn't laugh. Instead, there was a moment of tense silence. Then one of the ships turned and fled at maximum speed. The other 2 tried to fight. It didn't last long. Atlas coordinated the fire with surgical precision. The new railguns disabled one ship's engines with a single shot. The defense turrets destroyed the second ship's weapons systems before they could fire a shot. "Combat terminated," Atlas reported. Time elapsed 43 seconds. No damage to the mining freighters or the Void Guardian. Marcus opened communication with the freighters. "This is Captain Kane of the Void Guardian. You are safe now. Proceed to your destination." The response came immediately, full of gratitude. "Thank you, Guardian. We'll spread the word about what you did." And they did spread the word. In the following weeks, the name Void Guardian became known throughout the colonial frontier. Convoys began specifically requesting their escort. Pirates started avoiding routes where they knew the ship might appear. Colonial stations transmitted messages of thanks. But the real change came when other ships started joining them. First was an old destroyer called the Unwavering Storm, commanded by a veteran captain who had served with Marcus years ago. Then came a frigate called the Light of Hope, piloted by a crew of former colonists who had lost family members to pirates. In 3 months, what started as a single ship bought for 6 credits had transformed into a small colonial protection fleet. 6 ships in total, all commanded by veterans who had been discarded and disregarded. And at the center of it was the Void Guardian, the ship that proved value is priceless. 6 months after the Battle of New Horizon, Marcus Kane was on the bridge of the Void Guardian, watching an asteroid field through the view screen. The ship was in silent patrol mode, its sensors sweeping the surrounding space, while the small colonial protection fleet kept watch over the most vulnerable trade routes. "Captain," Sarah's voice echoed from the sensor station, "I'm detecting an anomaly. Strange energy signature coming from Sector Delta 37. Marcus turned. "What kind of anomaly? It doesn't match the pattern of any ship I know." The energy signature is massive, far larger than any conventional warship, and it's moving toward the New Haven colony. New Haven was the largest of the frontier colonies, home to nearly 500,000 people. An attack there would be catastrophic. Atlas analysis, Marcus ordered. The AI processed the data for 3 seconds. The energy signature corresponds to a dreadnought-class warship, essentially a mobile space fortress. Estimated armament superior to anything we have. Armor capable of withstanding prolonged bombardment. Marcus felt a chill. Dreadnoughts were rare. Building them cost fortunes, and only the wealthiest nations or most powerful criminal organizations could afford to operate them. "Transmit to the fleet," he said, "all ships to maximum alert. We need to find out what this thing wants before it reaches New Haven." The small colonial protection fleet quickly regrouped. 6 ships against 1 dreadnought. The mathematical odds were terrible, but among those 6 ships were hundreds of veteran lives who had learned that numbers didn't tell the whole story. Sarah managed to intercept transmissions from the mysterious ship 15 minutes later. Her face was pale as she translated. "Captain, they are identifying themselves as Warlord Kravik of the Vermilion Armada. They are broadcasting a demand for New Haven's unconditional surrender. They are giving the colony 12 hours to evacuate and hand over all valuable resources, or they will be destroyed." The Vermilion Armada was a legendary pirate organization, known for devastating entire colonies. If Kravik was here with a dreadnought, it meant New Haven was just the beginning. Marcus opened a channel to Governor Okonkwo. "Governor, we have a situation," he quickly explained. Okonkwo listened in silence, her face showing the tension she felt. "How long until the Federal Navy can send reinforcements?" she asked. "At least 20 hours," Marcus replied. "And that's if they dispatch a fleet immediately, which isn't guaranteed." "Then it's up to you," Okonkwo said, calmly. "I know it's a lot to ask. A dreadnought against 6 light ships is practically suicide. But 500,000 people will die if it reaches New Haven." Marcus cut the transmission and looked at his crew. Sarah had fear in her eyes, but also determination. Victor was checking weapon systems, his mechanical hands working faster than human eyes could follow. Jin was at the propulsion station, calculating trajectories. Elena was in the sickbay, preparing to receive casualties. Carter was checking ammunition supplies. Atlas broke the silence. "Captain, I have run combat simulations using all available data on Vermilion-class dreadnoughts. Our chances of a direct victory are 0.3%. Our chances of survival are 12%. And our chances of saving New Haven, if we do nothing," Marcus asked. 0%, the AI replied. Marcus nodded slowly. "Then the choice is clear." He opened a channel to the fleet. "Attention all ships. You heard the situation. A dreadnought is coming for New Haven. The odds of victory are terrible. The odds of survival are worse. No one will think less of you if you wish to withdraw. This is not an order. It is a choice." There was silence for 3 seconds. Then the voice of Captain Morrison of the Unwavering Storm echoed, "Respectfully, Captain Kane, screw that. We're with you." "Light of hope here," said Captain Rodriguez. "My family died because there was no one to protect them. I won't let that happen to other families. We're in." One by one, all 6 ships confirmed. No one backed down. Marcus felt pride swell in his chest. "Well done. Atlas, I need a plan. We can't win in direct combat, so we need to be smarter. The AI processed for 20 seconds. I have a strategy. It is risky and requires perfect coordination, but it is possible. Atlas's plan was audacious. The dreadnought had superior firepower, but it was slow and bulky. The 6 ships in the fleet were fast and maneuverable. The strategy was simple in theory, deadly in execution. Coordinated attacks in waves, each ship attacking from a different direction, forcing the dreadnought to divide its fire. The target wasn't the primary systems, which would be too well protected. It was the jump drive. If they could disable the dreadnought's ability to enter hyperspace, Kravik would be trapped in the system until the Federal Navy arrived. Positioning is critical, Atlas explained. Each ship must attack in precise sequence, drawing defensive fire while the next positions itself. The Void Guardian, with its superior armor, must absorb the majority of the direct fire while the other ships execute the attacks. So, we're the bait, Victor summarized. Exactly, Atlas confirmed. Marcus spent the next hour coordinating with the other captains. Each one understood their role. Each one knew they probably wouldn't survive, but each one also knew that 500,000 lives depended on them. The Vermilion dreadnought appeared on sensors 7 hours out from New Haven. It was a metal monstrosity, 3 kilometers long, covered with weapon turrets and shield generators. Next to it, the Void Guardian looked like a toy. Marcus opened a channel. Warlord, Kravik, this is Captain Marcus Kane of the Colonial Protection Fleet. You will not touch New Haven. Turn back now, or be forced to. The response was a deep, cruel laugh. Captain Kane of the Little Void Guardian. I've heard of you. The man who bought a piece of junk for 6 credits and thinks he's a hero. Your 6 pathetic ships are nothing against my fortress. Get out of the way or be destroyed with the colony. Then it looks like we'll do this the hard way, Marcus replied calmly. Fleet, execute Plan Atlas. What followed was a deadly dance in the void of space. The unwavering storm attacked first, firing its torpedoes in an arcing trajectory that forced the dreadnought to activate side shields. While the Vermilion's weapon turrets tracked the storm, the Light of Hope dove underneath, its railguns hitting the ventral shield generators. The Void Guardian accelerated straight toward the dreadnought, its titanium tungsten armor absorbing the concentrated fire from a dozen plasma cannons. Marcus felt the ship shudder under the bombardment, but Atlas kept transmitting. Armor holding, hull temperature rising, but within limits. The other 3 ships executed their maneuvers with precision, each attack forcing Kravik to reposition defenses, creating momentary openings. But it wasn't enough. The dreadnought was simply too large, with layered defenses that absorbed their attacks. Captain, Atlas said, the current strategy is causing minimal damage. We need a new approach. It was then that Marcus had an idea. It was insane. It was dangerous. But it was human. Atlas, how long do you need to hack the dreadnought's control systems if we can get a direct connection? Assuming I can bypass the security countermeasures, approximately 90 seconds. What if I put the Void Guardian directly against the dreadnought's hull? Could you establish a connection through physical contact with the external systems? There was a pause. Theoretically, yes. But that would require holding the ship in a stationary position under concentrated fire for at least 2 minutes. Our armor wouldn't hold. It doesn't need to hold, Marcus replied. It just needs to last long enough. He opened the fleet channel. Attention, all ships. Change of plan. I'm going to ram the Vermilion and create an opening. When you see the window, concentrate all fire on the jump drive. A coordinated attack, everything you have. Captain, that's suicide. Morrison protested. Probably, Marcus admitted, but it's the only chance we have. Before anyone could argue further, Marcus ordered, Jin, maximum speed, direct for the dreadnought. Victor, transfer all weapon energy to the frontal shields. Sarah, Elena, Carter, prepare for impact. The Void Guardian accelerated like a guided missile, its trajectory aimed directly at the Vermilion's central section. The dreadnought's weapon turrets tracked and opened fire. Energy beams and solid projectiles hammered the old ship's shields. Front shields failing, Atlas reported calmly. 20 seconds until contact. Marcus gripped the arms of his chair as the dreadnought completely filled the view screen. 10 seconds. The collision was controlled, but violent. The Void Guardian slammed against the Vermilion's hull, its magnetic fields gripping like giant suction cups. Alarms blared everywhere. Hull sections groaned under pressure. Contact established, Atlas announced. Initiating system invasion. Estimated time, 120 seconds. We don't have 120 seconds, Victor yelled as monitors showed the armor melting under concentrated fire. Then give me everything you've got, Atlas replied. The crew worked frantically. Jin redirected power from non-essential systems to reinforce critical hull points. Victor manually shut down systems that were overheating. Sarah kept sensors running while circuits exploded around her. 60 seconds, Atlas counted. The engine room was on fire. Elena evacuated 3 crew members with thermal injuries. Carter manually sealed compartments that were losing atmosphere. 30 seconds. Marcus could feel the ship dying around him. The old warrior he had brought back to life was sacrificing herself again. 15 seconds. Main hull armor failed, Victor reported. We are exposed. 10 seconds, Atlas said calmly. 5. Marcus closed his eyes. 2, 1. Full access to the dreadnought systems, Atlas announced triumphantly. Disabling all defensive systems. Attack window open. Now. The fleet didn't waste the opportunity. 5 ships converged simultaneously. All their firepower focused on the Vermilion's exposed jump drive. Torpedoes, railguns, cutting lasers. Everything hit the same spot in a crescendo of destruction. The dreadnought's jump drive exploded in a cascade of energy, lighting up space like a miniature star. Target neutralized, Morrison reported. Warlord Kravik is trapped in the system. Marcus let out a sigh of pure relief. Fleet, execute withdrawal. Mission accomplished. The Void Guardian separated from the Vermilion, its maneuvers slow and painful. The ship was severely damaged, but alive, just like its crew. They escorted the incapacitated dreadnought until the Federal Navy arrived. 12 hours later, Kravik was arrested. Haven was saved. 3 months later, Marcus was back on the bridge of the Void Guardian, fully repaired and better than ever. The ship had received official honors from the colonial government. His crew had been decorated. Protection contracts poured in from dozens of colonies. But the moment Marcus valued most was when Supervisor Chen of Volkov Station sent a message. Captain Kane, the message read, I remember when you bought that ship for 6 credits. I thought you were crazy. I was wrong. You saw value where others saw trash. You proved that the price of something doesn't determine its worth. And you saved thousands of lives in the process. It was an honor to witness the start of your journey." Marcus smiled and deleted the message. He looked around the bridge, seeing his crew at their stations. Sarah monitoring sensors, Victor checking weapons, Jin on propulsion, Elena in the sickbay, Carter managing logistics, and Atlas, the AI who had become more than a machine, coordinating everything. "Atlas," Marcus asked, "if you could go back in time, before I bought you at auction, would you change anything?" The AI considered for a moment. "No, Captain. Every decision brought us here. And this is exactly where we are meant to be." Marcus agreed. "Well said. Now, we have a convoy waiting for escort in the Delta sector. Let's get to work." The Void Guardian accelerated into hyperspace, its 20 turrets gleaming, its railguns ready, its crew united. A ship that cost 6 credits, but was worth millions of lives. A ship that proved humanity doesn't give up. No matter how damaged, discarded, or underestimated you are, there is always a chance for rebirth. Always an opportunity to prove your worth. You just need someone who believes in you. And maybe a few stubborn veterans who don't know when to quit. End of story. If the tenacity of the Void Guardian crew inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more Chronicles of the Galactic Frontier. Because in the vast universe, it's the stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things that truly matter. Like a veteran engineer who saw a fortress where others saw scrap metal, and proved that true value can never be measured in galactic credits.